Yeah, we saw Arsenal host Manchester City, two top teams, of course, and Arteta, I don't want to say he fumbled it. I don't want to say he fumbled it. But that's the noise that's going around. Looking at his starting lineup, the questions have to be asked about Mikel Merino starting as a pseudo-attacking midfielder because he really doesn't have that creativity in that position. Obviously, a defensive ploy from Arteta, leaving Eze on the bench. I look back at the Liverpool game and I think that should have been a cautionary tale. Arteta certainly has a squad to go after games, but is still hesitant to really put his offensive prowess on display. What we're seeing from Arteta is a manager who his success has come from defensive pragmatism, and he's having a difficulty shifting to that next gear. The structure is in place. What it takes to get to that elite tier is that slight shift in mentality from being this defensive fortress to being an offensive fortress while maintaining your defensive principles. And I think he's struggling to adjust to that reality. We also have to give Arteta a bit of leeway because this is his first managerial role. And I think we're seeing him learn in real time. We saw in the game, he started with Merino and it didn't work. Merino was a little bit too slow, lost the ball a few times, got caught in possession, wasn't creative. And that's what Arsenal needed from that position. They went down a goal and Arteta made the changes. So he was proactive enough, brought on Eze, brought on Saka, and gave the team the tools to get the goal. Eze came in, created the chance. I think Arteta is still struggling really to find the right role for Eze. We haven't really seen the best from him. He's not sure about Eze yet and where his right position is. So I think that's why we see a bit of reluctance to throw him in these critical moments, to start the game at least.
Eze is a big talking point. And I was thinking about what should the lineup be with Eze in it? Now that you've seen a couple of games, we've seen Eze assist from the left flank in the front three. We saw him play in the midfield three and assist from there as well. Where do you think he belongs on the pitch? It sounds like you think he should be starting. What would you do to unleash this offensive power that Arsenal has?
Eze has the quality to play anywhere. What needs to happen is to develop chemistry and understanding with the rest of the team. We know he has quality and we've seen it on 2 occasions, providing 2 assists. But his overall play, for me, has been slightly underwhelming because he doesn't have that chemistry with his teammates yet. My preference would be naturally to see him play in a position where he's made the name for himself. But we have Martin Odegaard there. It would be difficult to argue that Martin Odegaard doesn't deserve to start. It's a difficult situation for Arteta to figure out. He has a lot of good players trying to find the right formula. It will be a difficult thing. I guess that formula will depend upon the opponents that he's facing, who's fit, who's in form. Those are all the variables that one has to consider. But I think Eze's natural position, of course, is as a playmaker. I think he can be effective at any position. He just needs to develop that understanding with the rest of his teammates. Because Arsenal play a certain way. They're used to playing a certain way. I think Eze is not used to playing that way. He gets the ball sometimes and he's not making the passes that they're expecting him to make. Or he's not in the position where they're expecting him to be. It's just a matter of developing that chemistry, and I think the rest will sort itself out.
He brings a unique talent that should allow for experimentation. I was watching the game, and the player who I think is a candidate for removal from the starting lineup, in my opinion, is Zubimendi. I think Zubimendi has come into the team with a big reputation, and I don't think he's one of Arsenal's best 11 players. I think he has the potential to be a good player, but right now, he's still learning as well, but I don't see him as the midfield general. I see Declan Rice as the midfield general. He's still the player, even though he's slotted on the left of the midfield three. He's the one in the middle, for me, who's making those important decisions, picking the ball up from the defenders, the keeper, to start the play. I was thinking to myself, maybe Zubimendi needs to get a message that, hey, in order to be in this team, you have to deliver at a certain level. I was thinking that potentially Arteta could play Declan Rice as the pure 6 and play Martin Odegaard on the right, where he usually plays in the midfield 3, and Eze on the left in the midfield 3. And that would give Eze the opportunity to get the ball from a little bit deeper positions and drive forward, kind of like he was able to do for Crystal Palace. In a different
let me respond to that, because I think the issue with that is that Eze is not really defensive minded. What he brings to the team defensively certainly wouldn't account for the amount of work that Zubimendi does defensively. Zubimendi needs to adjust to the league, but I still think he gives the team a certain balance. His distribution isn't as penetrative at the moment, but I still think he brings a balance to the team, both in defensive and offensive phases of the game. Playing Eze and Odegaard would be an incredible offensive weapon, but defensively, I think that would disrupt the balance of the team. We know Odegaard definitely does a lot of the defensive work, but his defensive work is usually done in the offensive third of the pitch.
Arsenal being 1-0 down, what is Arteta doing to come back?
Right. But you were talking about Odegaard, but Odegaard wasn't available for the game. And so the point was, when Odegaard is available, your starting 11 would be Odegaard playing alongside Eze, with Rice playing in the holding role. But Odegaard wasn't available. So Arteta did bring in Eze in the central midfield position. We saw what he did. I would have liked to have seen him start. In the absence of Odegaard, he's the number one choice in that role. But when Odegaard is back, that's where the decision needs to be considered. What will he do with two, I would say, world-class playmakers? Because you can't play both of them in the same position. In my view, you have to find a way to integrate Eze into the team. It won't be at the expense of Odegaard. I think he has to play either on the wing and find a way to influence the game, to bring his game and bring his skill set to that position. Playing them both, I think you can do that when you're chasing a game, or when you have full command of a game and you just want to be ruthless. But in a high-stakes game where they both will have a lot of defensive responsibility, I think would be risky.
Well, part of what we saw in this game was we did see Pep Guardiola come in and capitulate to Arsenal, come in and play with a low block. So Arsenal had the advantage. Arsenal are the bigger squad. Manchester City came into the game recognizing that. Of course, we don't know how Guardiola was going to approach the game before the game, but I do think there is a time where, given how strong Arsenal's backline is, one of the strongest globally, if not the strongest, you can play with 1-6 and play with Odegaard and Eze in that midfield three. If Declan Rice is the six. I'm not saying if it's Zubimendi, Cal Marino, it's anyone else other than Declan Rice, then I wouldn't propose this. I think you can do this, at least test this out, maybe against a smaller side in the Premier League. And what I would do, I would think about playing Madueke on the left, given that what Arsenal don't have when Madueke does not play is someone who goes to the byline and can get around the corner, beating that last defender, having a reverse pass across the box. We saw him do that twice against Manchester City, and Arsenal, they just weren't ready for the pass. If they start to get used to what Madueke can do, and he does that on the left, all of a sudden you open up service from the left-hand side. You let Saka and Odegaard do what they do on the right, because we know they have incredible chemistry. And I think that's a team that can be very, very devastating and offensive. I do think Arsenal, with Zubimendi and playing with the more traditional way, they're great for the Champions League. In the Premier League, I do think that, though, the creativity, the innovation with the tools at Arteta's disposal, I think it's worthwhile to give it a try. And that might unleash a level of clinicalness, for the lack of a better term, from Gyökeres that we're not seeing right now, because the player who is out in the cold is Victor Gyökeres. He was a non-factor, and actually, he's trying so hard to touch the ball that when he does touch it, the touches are not crisp. They're not.
I'm critical of Gyökeres. I think he works hard. His effort is there. The energy is there. But I don't think he has the polish for this level yet. I think his touches are not sharp and not crisp, not because he's being marked. I think he just doesn't have the quality. In the Premier League, you don't have time. You're never going to have time. So your touches, they should be sharp. Every once in a while, he has a layoff, which is nice. But generally speaking, every time the ball goes into him, it's fumbled. There was one instance in the game, Arsenal won a breakaway on the left side and Trossard was running down the wing. It was just, I think, a 2-on-2 or 2-on-3. And Gyökeres was in possession. He had a simple layoff to Trossard. Simple. The heavy touch. Trossard was forced way too wide. All the momentum from that attack was lost. And I think this crispness, this precision is something that he needs to add to his game. Until then, he will be left out in the cold, because Arsenal are a team that plays with precision, that relies on that precision to create opportunities. But to go back to what you're saying, I do agree that there is a potential to unlock Arsenal's offense by playing Odegaard alongside Eze. I just think in the games against the top teams, that's a risk that may be too high. Because with City, we saw, even with Arsenal having the best defense, all it takes is one moment of indiscretion, and Erling Haaland is in and you're 1-0 behind. So you want that defensive solidity in the midfield. You want that work rate in the midfield because that's where City operate. At least historically, that's where they have operated and dominated. We see a slightly different City now, but Arteta knows what Guardiola is capable of. He knows what these players are capable of. And he went with a cautious approach. It's been criticized. I understand it. I give him credit for making changes. We saw against Liverpool, he took way too long to try to impact the game from the bench, making changes in the 70th minute. Here, he went straight to the bench at halftime. So he's learning. And you have to give a manager credit who's willing to learn. There are a lot of other managers out there who don't. So a lot of the criticism towards Arsenal and Arteta in particular can be a bit harsh sometimes. And there's a lot of media frenzy now, a lot of noise around Arsenal and Arteta. Arsenal are the best squad in the world. Arteta is a coward. And I think it's a bit unfair, a bit unjust. We see a manager who is learning on the job and willing to hold his hand up and say, okay, I got it wrong in the first half. I'm going to make a change.
But I guess 5 points behind Liverpool, 5 games into the season is not where Arsenal wants to be. But yes, Arteta is a manager who's learning, but he's been at the helm for Arsenal for many years now. I think it's time for him to arrive if he's going to arrive. But he was playing against his mentor, Pep Guardiola. And we have to think that playing against Pep Guardiola will get into any manager's head. And maybe that had something to do with the way Arteta approached the game. The other headline from a tactical perspective is City resorting to playing a low block, City giving up possession of the ball, City playing in transition and looking to catch the defense sleeping out of position. It's the new way of playing for them. And not to say that they'll do this in every game, but this is something that we've never seen from them before. As I was watching the game, I recall hearing the commentators say that their possession of the ball was the lowest it had ever been under Pep Guardiola in a game at some point in the second half. It was around 31% at some point. So what does that say about Pep? Is Pep changing? And is he changing in a way that will allow his team to get results? What's your view on the way Pep approached that game?
Look, Pep Guardiola, to me, is the greatest manager in the world. I know he's had a couple rough years, but let us not forget who this man is. Yeah, of course, City are going through a rebuild. Pep Guardiola is figuring out how to get the best out of his team. We heard him talk a little bit about this current Arsenal squad with a little bit of envy and an acknowledgement that the team may be a stronger team than his. He adjusted as a consequence. That, to me, shows a manager who is adaptable, who is situationally aware, who is flexible. I look at Pep as a courageous manager because it takes courage with Pep's reputation to play in a low block with 5 defenders in the second half. That takes courage because he knows that there's a media storm coming, that questions will be asked if he doesn't get the result. And draw at Arsenal is definitely a result for City. So he was willing to do what the situation required. That's the next tier of management. Doing whatever is required to get a result.
I agree. I saw a quote from Pep. I don't know what the question was, but he said, we did better against Arsenal than we did last season, just like we did against Manchester United. And it made me realize that Pep is judging his team in incremental way, thinking about, okay, we sort of hit rock bottom last season. We're in a rebuilding phase, and the goal is to get better incrementally over time. So each team we play, we want to have a better result than we had last season, to a varying degree depending on the team. But I believe that Arsenal blew out Manchester City last season. So him coming in and getting a draw is a big leap forward compared to last season, when you think that Arsenal are now much stronger than they were last season. So this is someone who is aware, who's recognizing the situation and adjusting appropriately and setting goals for the team in a way that they're achievable and allows them to build confidence and momentum over time. I think what we are seeing is a little bit of the mastermind of Pep coming back, manifesting itself in a different way than it did in the past. And I wouldn't be surprised when Ryan Cherky gets fit and they have competition within the team more so than they do now, they'll be going after games. But right now, I think he just wants to stay in the conversation, not fall behind too much in the table. And once he gets his players back, and who knows, they may have plans for January for the transfer window, really make a push later on in the season. So a very strategic play against Arsenal for Pep Guardiola. I admit, I'm not a fan of parking the bus to protect the lead. I think in most cases, once you get a 1-0 lead, unless you're Jose Mourinho with John Terry and Carvalho and Ivanovic in the back, you're probably going to concede a goal against the top team. And that's exactly what happened. I do think Pep could have been a little bit more enterprising, but difficult task. And for them to get a point was a fair result and probably all they were looking to get from the game to begin with. So fair play to him.